I was selected for one of India's biggest singing reality shows with the biggest Bollywood names as the judges. I performed, even sang with one of the judges on stage, and yet my performance never aired on TV. Let me tell you the full story and what you need to keep in mind if you're ever going for one of these shows. Hey guys, I'm Saurabh Shetty. For the ones who don't know me, I'm a music producer, a live performer. I've done music for a lot of web series, TV commercials, movies, and sang for concerts, weddings, and corporate events as well. So here's my story of how my singing reality show experience went. So as some of you might know, there are some internal rounds which happen in every reality show of this kind, where you get to skip the whole line and just go directly inside and perform for the judges. It's of course dependent on if you get a call from the producers or the show itself based on whatever you have done previously or some online content of yours which might have gone viral. I used to do a lot of loop based videos, which is doing songs loop by loop, covering guitars, then covering some beatboxing, then singing my song on top of those layers. One of those songs had gotten a pretty good reach for that time on YouTube, and that's when I got a call from this show saying, "We really like your music, we want you in here, do you want to give an audition?" And obviously I was super excited because it meant that my life would change if I went on this show and did these songs, because I had been working for a long time already in music, creating my own songs and doing these TV commercials, but especially these kind of reality shows have been a dream of mine for a long time as well. So I went for the first internal round and I went with my whole loop act. I performed my act, and the internal judges, which are not the main judges, they really loved my whole performance, my techniques that I was using with the beatboxing, the way I was on beat with my song, and I wanted to keep this in mind as we go to the final stage. So they liked my song and they said, "Let us get back to you with the next date of the main judges selection." But before that, they sent me a contract. Now this contract was crazy because what it had was 35% of royalties from any song I make before or after the show happens. What else it had was my live shows would be restricted to being exclusively with the reality show and the channel and the entertainment company that they had collaborated with. So for the next 3 years, I wouldn't get to perform by myself in any other show, and I would be under their sort of overview in terms of my fees, in terms of how much I could charge and where I could perform. So immediately, because I was already in the field, I called them back. I said, "This is just not doable, especially these points, and could you switch them up a bit so it gives me freedom in certain categories? Say not include the royalties, because I already would have been making my songs, and whatever I do with the channel or collaborate with them, in that I'm fine of course to share the royalties, but for the rest part it's just not fair because I had already been making songs." And secondly, for the live performance bit, I asked them to reduce the timeline a bit so that it's fair for them and me as well if I ever reach the final round or the final top 5. Now I never expected them to come back to me with that contract change, but surprisingly they did. They changed the contract a bit and they told me if it works. It was a Sunday morning and they were calling me for auditions Sunday afternoon. I was somewhere out there running in a jogging park, and I just stopped everything and I went back. I'm like, okay, I need to go for this audition. So that's how I ended up in the auditions. And this is where the real circus began. I was introduced first in a room with wardrobe fittings where they chose a kind of attire for me. It was pretty cool, to be honest, and I didn't have clothes like that, so that's not a bad part of it. Then they made me do an interview to understand my backstory and to create a bit, because the way they started with was asking me for my story, and that's when the problem started, because personally I never think of my musical career to be a path of struggle, of hustle. It's more about understanding what all you can do in the current times and how well you can do it, which is why I've created this channel. So if you do like musician survival stories like this, click on subscribe. So I told them that I wouldn't be doing a sob story. I will be telling my original story, which is a story of a normal person, that I was an IT engineer and then I switched into music, and that's where I am right now. They weren't too interested in the story, I felt, because they were trying to go deeper into what's with family. And they also asked me a question, which is your favorite judge who you would like to impress the most? So I gave an answer which was really the person who I wanted to impress. Then there was internal mentoring as well, which was amazing because there was a very senior professional who was understanding how every performance went, mixed them up with musicians in order to make the performance really stand out. He really enjoyed my performance as well because it was all a solo act with a single mic and a loop stand and a guitar. So I was really confident that I would be really rocking it on the stage. And after all of this, the moment finally came. I was supposed to go on stage. One of the crew members told me to call out a certain judge in order to request him to sing with me with that loop bass setup. They also told me what to do in case I got selected, what to do if I didn't, and it was crazy. I don't even remember much of it because I was already holding on to my nerves for the performance. I stepped on stage, started my whole loop act, praying that my first beat would be on time, because if that doesn't happen, the whole loop setup goes haywire, and it did. The whole performance went fine. And when I stopped, everyone started clapping. It was a great high for me, and I realized, oh my god, I would be making it this time. And then the judges started speaking out their comments. The first judge said, amazing performance, really good, and what's that setup? I'd love to see it, and how you do things with it. I'm like, yes, got it. And then the second judge came in. She also said it was a really good performance, well sung, and she did not realize that all of this could be done on a single machine. And then it came time for the third judge, who was my preferred judge. He said, I did enjoy the performance, but I'm not sure if we can allow this kind of performance because you're using an electronic device here. And I was stunned. In my head, I was thinking about 100 different things. The first of which was, why did the team even call me here if they thought that this was not technically qualifiable for the show? I did still say everything on here has been produced live in front of you. There are no pre-recorded things. But then he really stuck on the points. The other judges too then started saying, yeah, maybe this might not work. And then they all started speaking amongst themselves, and they reached the verdict that I wouldn't be selected. My heart just broke. And then I remembered this crew member who was signaling me to call that third judge onto the stage to sing with me. And still I did. I said, thanks for all your comments. I still would love to sing with you. And then the judge came on stage. I did a loop cover for him and he sang along with me, and it was all amazing, great claps. And then I went back. Cut to, I start seeing the show. It's out there. I can see the contestant who was before me on the show, and then it turned to the contestant who was after me. So I realized that my performance had been edited. Now there might be many reasons behind this. I don't completely blame them, because one of the reasons might be the contract change that I did. A second reason might be I didn't have a very good sob story because I am normal. The third thing might be that all of their doubts were justified in a sense, because how do you really understand if the performance is live or not? Other than if you can ask the crew members to actually see if he has some recorded content. But anyways, that's what happened, and that's when I realized that singing reality shows aren't completely about the singing. They're also about the stories that can be sold, and that makes sense because it's a TV show after all. But honestly, I'm glad it happened, because later down the line I realized if you own your art, you really own your own freedom. So if you're a singer or a musician trying to make it without losing yourself, join me in this journey and click on subscribe. This is Music in Progress, where we fail, learn, and just keep making music.